y'all. Can you hear me? Yes. Well, thank you all so much for being here. We're going to get started. Thank you for packing the house today. This is very exciting. Kansas City turned out. I'd love to see it. My name is Leslie Bush. I use she, hers pronouns. I'm the field director at the ACLU of Kansas. I'm just so grateful that you all showed up today. You know, I know it's frigid out there. A lot of you had to walk from the other parking lot to join us. But I think that's a testament to, you know, the courage that you all have and the power that you're showing by just showing up today. So we're going to cover a lot today. And the first thing we want to talk about is Congress. So next week, Congress is going to vote on what's called the Defund Our Communities Act. This bill was presented as an immigration measure, but in reality, it would give the Trump administration broad power to cut federal funding to hundreds of state and local governments. It's not just an attack on immigrant communities, it's an attack on our democracy. And today, you're gonna have a chance to take action to put pressure on your members of Congress to vote no on this harmful bill. Meanwhile, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. Yeah, that's the spirit. We're seeing a potentially illegal invasion of our privacy with the seizing of federal databases, and we must demand that our personal, sensitive information will not be illegally accessed by President Trump or by his unvetted allies. And finally, right here in Kansas, unfortunately, I'm afraid to say, we are seeing our legislature push more harmful measures through the State House. We're seeing the legislature work to ban life-saving, gender-affirming health care for trans kids. They're pushing through a voter suppression bill that would eliminate the 3-day mail processing window for mail-in ballots. And lawmakers at Topeka have proposed a resolution that would politicize our Supreme Court, which is a direct challenge to the rights that we Kansans hold dear. But amidst this battery of very bad news, I want you to remember something important. We are also seeing people just like you rise up and mobilize to call on their members of Congress to protect their communities. And you're not alone. The courts have also already stood up to the president. They've blocked the executive order attempting to strip birthright citizenship. ACLU has already filed 7 lawsuits to protect access to asylum, accurate IDs for trans folks, and more. And the thing I want you to remember as we talk today is to look around you right now. Look at this packed room. You are surrounded by people who care deeply about their communities and that are not going to sit by and just hope for the best while our leaders trample on our civil rights. People organized to protect their communities and demand better is the antidote. Organizing is forever, so whether you're starting today and this is the first time you've showed up, or you're continuing today after decades of resistance, remember that you are not alone, and everyone in this room and beyond is standing with you. You're surrounded by a community of people who hold you up. So, without further ado, before we start with our speakers, I'm gonna introduce y'all to a little chant. Y'all like chants?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right. So this one goes, what do we do? Stand up, fight back, okay? So when I say, when President Trump tries to defund our communities, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Nice, y'all are great. Okay. So we're gonna, remember that, we're gonna keep using that. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, a leader in the Kansas City immigrant rights community that is truly meeting our political moment and organizing to defend our communities right now. And that is the Executive Director of Advocates for Immigrant Rights and Reconciliation Kansas City, Carla Juarez.
Hi everybody.
Hi.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Who froze to death walking here? My legs were hurting. Thanks for being here. Thank you, ACLU of Kansas and other partners who are here today. My name is Carla Juarez. I am the Executive Director for Advocates for Immigrant Rights and Reconciliation. And those who do not know me, just for a little context, I am an immigrant. I grew up undocumented. you know why this work is important for me. Why should you care about this work? Because it's not just us who they're coming for. It's all of us. Okay? What's that chant?
What do we do? Stand up, fight back.
Yes. What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Yes. All of us. It takes all of us. There have been many conversations throughout the years. I've been doing this work without knowing I was doing this work since I was 15, fighting for my own rights, marching on May Day with my mom. So this is real. This is really real for all of us. And you should care about this. You being here is caring. And I'm not saying that you are here and you might not care, because you being here is caring. So I appreciate you being here today in this cold Monday. I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on that you probably heard on the news, but making it real. People are scared. People are anxious. This stuff is real. I've met a man who did not leave his home for 10 whole days because of the fear going on outside, because of false ICE activity, real ICE activity, targeted people being arrested, but then collateral being taken, right? You hear a lot about, in my community, construction workers, right? My stepdad is a construction worker. They'll pick you up at a place, and ICE is being sneaky. They are surveilling you. They are surveilling people and waiting for them to go to the grocery store, go get gas, pick up their coworkers, and detaining them. So we are seeing a lot of those detentions happening. AIR, Advocates for Immigrant Rights and Reconciliation, AIR for short, is at the forefront of this work, really working with community partners, community watchers, really teaching people about their rights, because everybody who lives in U.S. soil has rights and is protected under the U.S. Constitution. Yeah. Don't forget that. Share that with your neighbors. Share it with everybody. So we are really out there doing the work. Our Know Your Rights is one of our main programs, but not just education and community defense, which is what we're focusing on this year because of what we're seeing, right, and what we expected, really. Nothing could have prepared us, though, for what did come and what is coming. A lot of people thought that Kansas wasn't going to be a focus around immigration because federal government will take care of that. That's been what we normally say, that the federal government will take care of that. Well, no. I can tell you there's a long list of anti-immigrant bills in the state of Kansas that have been introduced and have had hearings. One of them is the resolution that has no power because it's a resolution. It's really a political statement more than anything. But bills to watch for, SB 254 is one that you should write down. And if you go to our website, all of our partners here and other partners who are not here and AIR are collaborating statewide to get people to take action. So if anybody can, I don't know if we have that link, sorry, I didn't share it, but if you go to AIR's Facebook page, Instagram, you'll see a call to action. It's an easy link that you can fill out, and it'll send your representative and senator an email saying that you oppose. So really pay attention to that bill. That bill is really attacking in-state tuition. How many of you know that undocumented DACA recipients can pay in-state tuition in the state? No? Yeah? Yes, I got a few yeses. Okay. Well, ever since it's been done, it was before my time, it's been under attack. So that bill is really attacking that. Medicaid, undocumented people cannot qualify for Medicaid, except under certain circumstances, and it's very difficult. So a lot of that media conversation about undocumented people depleting resources is not true, okay? We contribute more than we take. So, thank you. That bill, SB 254, and there's a similar bill in the State House, which means that it's a priority for them to pass it. It's in a very specific committee that allows them to work the bill even after deadline. So these are tactics that are being used. Also, another bill to watch out for, SB 178. That it will be instructing local police departments to work with ICE. We don't want state resources, local resources spent on federal immigration. That's just not it. We don't want to use local police departments to terrorize our community. Okay, that just makes communities unsafe. It makes people not report crimes. How much time do I have? Okay, keep going. I just wanted to share, those are the two bills to watch out for. There are many. Really get on ACLU's list, get on all of our lists. We really do a great job in sharing information, but if it is a concrete step that you want to do to take action, is really have conversations with your elected officials at the state level, at the federal level. I had a conversation with my representative, and I told her, the government is falling apart. What are you doing about it? Those are the conversations. They need to hear from you. They need to hear from you, because it's not just us who they're coming for, it's you next. And I don't want to be the one to create fear, but it's a reality. If we're not safe, nobody's safe. So really, let's stand up for those civil rights, for human rights, because this is the time. It's the time to stand up and do something. Thank you for having me.
So when we come to immigrant communities, what are we going to do?
Stand up, fight back.
What are we going to do?
Stand up, fight back.
Nice. All right, so now we're going to hear from one of the country's leaders in the reproductive rights movement, who is defending reproductive freedom across the Midwest, the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Great Plains, Emily Wales.
Thank you, Leslie. Hi, everyone. It is amazing to see this room as full as it is. It is heartwarming and a really difficult time to get to be in space with all of you. So I do think it feels a little heavy in here because it's scary, and what we're dealing with is scary. So we're going to do another little chant. This one's a Planned Parenthood special because we've done it before. And Kansas, as it always does, leads the way nationally, particularly when it comes to saying the government has gone too far. The government has overreached. So let's just do a little bit of bands off our bodies, okay? Bands off
Our bodies.
Bands off
Our bodies.
This applies obviously in the reproductive health context, but I do think as we are talking now about our immigrant communities and our partners in this work and in the progressive movement, it is bands off in a whole lot of ways. And that is the message that we are working together to send to the federal administration, but also to send to the Kansas legislature. I want to go over a few things that we are tracking at Planned Parenthood and our advocacy arm, Planned Parenthood Great Plains Votes, so that you all know what we are preparing for, what we think may be coming down the line, and most importantly, what may seem like a resolved issue, especially here in Kansas, where voters had the opportunity to weigh in, to tell the legislature that they had gone too far, and to affirm what the state Supreme Court had already found, which was a constitutional right to personal autonomy, including a right to abortion access. It is not resolved. We are fighting every single day to ensure that patients have access to care, but we also now are dealing with a federal government that is eager to disrupt and distract and ensure that people can't get the care that they need. So what are we at Planned Parenthood bracing for? A few things. One, we are watching what could happen, of course, with a federal abortion ban that would seek to undermine the will of the people, the majority of the people in the country, but especially here in Kansas and now Missouri, which has followed suit and established a constitutional right to abortion. That may happen, it may not, but what I think is very likely to happen is that the Comstock laws, some of you may have heard of these are laws from the 1800s that were intended to restrict access to initially birth control, but also anything used in the performance of an abortion from being transported via common carriers. So that would be the U.S. Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, If that changes, for a long time it's been interpreted to mean only illegal abortions, that you couldn't use the U.S. Postal Service or other common carriers for illegal abortions. We anticipate that there's a real chance that that will be changed to include any abortions. So even in states where we have a constitutional right, providers of abortion services like Planned Parenthood would not be able to use the mail service. And it could be for anything from medication abortion materials all the way to the gloves that we use in our health centers. It makes it really hard to provide not only terminations at our centers, but also emergency care. So we're watching very closely for that. We also are monitoring at the federal level for interruptions in public assistance for the work that we do. Now I will say, unfortunately, we are ahead of the curve at Planned Parenthood Great Plains because we have been defunded from some of our states. We are not in Medicaid in 2 states. We are not in Title X, which is the federal family planning program, in 2 states. So we are braced to deal with what is coming. But at the national level, loss of Medicaid funding or Title X funding or the discounts that we get on critical prescription medications for contraception and STI testing and treatment, it would devastate the family planning infrastructure in the country. It would mean that many, many patients who can't get into health departments or in the case of undocumented communities, don't want the government to have their information, or if you're a Missourian, don't want the government tracking their period, that they would not have options to go to outside of state systems. Those are things we're worried about, of course. And we are, because we're abortion providers, we're also worried about our safety. That is not new. I think especially here in Kansas, it is not lost on our team every single day that Dr. Tiller had a legacy of providing care and lost his life because of it here in Kansas. But we are particularly concerned because the Trump administration has officially instructed the Department of Justice to no longer enforce the FACE Act, which ensures access to reproductive care. It was written to protect abortion providers, but to only enforce it in the most dire circumstances. So when we have people who are threatening to run at the health center, to block or to create a barrier in front of patients, it's going to be really hard for us to get that enforced, even though patients have a state constitutional right in Kansas to access care. Those are the things that we're preparing for. So what can you do? There's nothing revolutionary here. At the state level, we will have a lobby day on March 11th. I would ask all of you if you can attend, send your families, send your friends. One of the best things about doing this work in the state of Kansas is that it is not a guess how people feel about abortion access or contraception. We have a statewide vote that happened just a few years ago that told the legislature exactly how the people of the state felt. And it is helpful when they hear reminders from us during lobby days to say, here is how your district voted. Here are the people in this state who have told you what you should do. So stop wasting time on bills that you are proposing this year, including outright bans on abortion, additional information that would be biased and misleading for patients. Those are bills that are in the legislature right now. So come to us for lobby day. If you are eager to be outside more in the cold, I didn't see a lot of you raise your hands, but we have patient allies at our health centers in Kansas, and we would love to have more volunteers to do that work. We have an incredible team of volunteers who come out and help patients go to and from the health centers, because every single day there are opposition voices outside yelling at our patients with no knowledge of what care they're there to get, but also no knowledge of whether it's an abortion, it is miscarriage management, they don't know, and it doesn't seem to matter. So we'd love to have you there. Also, if you want to be a patient, you are all welcome to get care at Planned Parenthood. One of the questions I get a lot is, how can I help if I really work full time, I don't have time on the weekends? We are proud to offer care to every single person who needs us, and we're also happy to take your insurance, if you haven't. So then lastly, one thing I would like to leave on, which is a slightly better note, because it is very scary. We are also, as one of the country's largest providers of gender care, deeply concerned about the attacks on trans youth, but also gender patients generally. It was not long ago that the state of Missouri had an emergency rule proposed that would have blocked adults from starting gender care. And we were lifting up pop-up clinics, emergency clinics in Kansas to get patients established on care so they can be grandfathered in under that proposed rule. It ended up not taking effect because we were fighting it. But that is the work that we do day in and day out, and it is heartbreaking and it's hard, and I see all on your faces that it is affecting everyone. That's why you're here, because you need, I think, to feel in community, you need to feel supported, and more than anything, you need to know what you can do. So I've given you some options of what to do, but I will leave you on this good note. As someone who grew up in Missouri and was raised by a Kansan, my mom takes great pleasure in watching the state of Missouri follow Kansas's lead. And it is a moment of tremendous celebration. You know, that in Kansas, when we had to vote, we felt the weight of the world on our shoulders because we knew that we were going to be the first in the country after the fall of Roe to vote on abortion access. And we came out, we showed up, we told the world what Kansas was about. And Missouri, I think, truly inspired by what happened here and by the shock of Kansas leading the way. I wasn't shocked. But by the shock of that, they took action and restored abortion access. And for the first time in 6 years, our health center in Kansas City, Missouri, on the Missouri side, provided an abortion this weekend. There are really good things happening, and it is important to us. I would say it's important to us to do this work with you, but also, many thanks to all the other coalition partners who are here tonight. We do this because we do it together. It's impossible to fight this fight alone, so thank you for showing up. We value your being here. Thank you all.
When reproductive rights are under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back.
Y'all are getting really good at this. Okay. So next we're gonna hear from the fiercest education advocate I know, board member with the National Education Association and the KNEA, Angie Powers.
This is not a room of high school students. This is not what I'm used to. My name is Angie Powers. My pronouns are he, she, her, rather. Traditionally, I'm in the front of the room with high school students. I've taught high school English and AVID for 25 years, mostly in the Johnson County area. And as Leslie mentioned, I am honored to serve on the board of NEA and KNEA, and that is what brings me here today. Also personally, I am the proud mother of a wonderful non-binary human, which I bring into every space that I am in. Today I wish I was here to say that I have a message of supporting public schools. But let me be clear. In order to defend freedom, we have to protect them. We'll get to the supporting rhetoric again, right? We'll talk about supporting our public schools, but right now we need everybody to show up just to protect them. I really like it when the right-wing extremists that are trying to destroy our public schools say the quiet part out loud, and Christopher Rufo is one of those that does that very well. He said, in order to get universal school choice, you really need to operate from a premise of universal public school distrust. And that is the playbook, right? Ooh, yes. We know that in order to defund our schools, they have to get people to distrust them. So when we're talking about fear of immigration, fear of our trans and non-binary children and adolescents and adults, the humans that surround us that are just as human as the rest of us, stoking that fear is about creating distrust so that they can take money from public schools and give them to private schools. I don't have anything against private schools. Let me be clear. Private schools do a lot of great things, but go tell that to some people in the rural parts of Kansas. What private schools are they going to go to, right? These will hurt our rural areas in Kansas even more than they'll hurt the areas that we are in. I wanted to clarify a couple things about vouchers, because I know we often hear that term school choice. To be clear, the only people that have a choice in school choice are the schools. They can choose whether or not to take those children. Public schools take all children. A voucher program is any program that takes money from public schools and puts it into something else, like a private school, like home schools, whether it's a scholarship, whether it's a tax credit at the federal level, even capital gains tax credits. There's all kinds of ways that they're going to disguise what a voucher is, and they're going to give them all sorts of names, and they're all going to say things like opportunity or scholarship. But if they take money away from public schools, it is in fact a voucher. A little fun fact about vouchers is they were started after Brown v. Board. Probably guess why they started. We wanted our white children to have vouchers, our white families to have vouchers so they wouldn't have to go to school with other children. And unfortunately, the playbook for vouchers isn't much different now. Okay, it is absolutely not about giving parents choices. Parents have those choices. We know that most of the time vouchers are not used for children who were in public schools to begin with. Vouchers most of the time are used for children who were already in private schools. I want to talk just a moment about some of the state level threats, okay? We've seen the culture war in our local school boards, definitely in the state legislature. It's nasty again this year, and all of those culture war bills are absolutely intended to make people distrust public schools. Okay, just go on Twitter as an educator with any kind of rainbow flag and you will be called a groomer in 5 seconds. Can't explain to you how many times I've been called a groomer. And all I'm simply doing is saying, hey, LGBTQ kids deserve to have rights too. Right? It's all about that distrust. In the Kansas legislature right now, if you're the kind of person that likes to have the bill numbers, HB 2136, again, HB 2136, and SB 87, so HB 2136 and SB 87 are companion bills, and they're designed to expand the current scholarship voucher program that we have in Kansas right now. And let me be clear, we are not even spending the amount of money that we have set aside for that. Why are we expanding a program that we're not even spending that money? The bills that are even worse, because they're more traditional voucher bills with fewer regulations, are HB 2156 and SB 75. Again, HB 2156 and SB 75. So those are a couple of things to watch for in the Kansas legislature. I came back yesterday from DC, having the opportunity to chat with some legislators in DC as well as have an NEA board meeting, and had a chance to talk about all of the chaos that the executive orders, the threats to close the Department of Education, the federal layoffs, had an opportunity to talk to some of our legislators about the chaos that's sowing. We're actually having special education teachers here in Johnson County who are wondering, am I gonna have a job? Because they're so busy during the day, they can't keep up with that chaos, okay? They don't understand that IDEA and Title I is something that really has to go through appropriations. They don't understand that all of these threats that are happening are gonna have to be litigated. They're just scared, okay? They're scared, and it's a hard job, and we are not gonna be able to keep our educators in our Kansas classrooms if we continue this chaos. Wanted to share just a couple ideas about if we were to lose Title I funding in Kansas. That is the equivalent of over 3,000 entry-level educator salaries just here in Kansas. Just Title I funding. IDEA is another over 3,000 educators equivalent of funding that we would lose. Okay, again, let me be clear. The reconciliation process that is happening in the next few weeks in DC, that is not a vehicle through which you can defund Title I and IDEA, but we also know we're living in a world where what you aren't allowed to do and what we try to do are not the same things anymore. Let me take a moment just for the human impact. When it comes to immigration, y'all, we've been practicing taking bullets for our students for years. You don't think we're willing to stand up to ICE? Absolutely not. They are not going to take our children. Luckily, we live in a state where we have some really good guidance from KSDE. We have some local school districts who are absolutely trying to do the right thing in protecting our children from ICE. But the reality is that what people say is going to happen and what we're fearful of what could happen, those are different things. But you all know that your children will be as safe as humanly possible in the hands of our educators. I already mentioned special education teachers. The shortage, not the shortage of people who are certified to be special education teachers, the people who are currently willing to serve as special education teachers or any educator at this point, that shortage is vast and it's not improving. Okay, and these impacts are really making that worse. Last thing I want to mention before I go to the call to action is just kind of taking another moment to connect the dots. Okay? For years, a right-wing funded, very well-funded, well-orchestrated attack on education has started with all of the culture wars. The CRT, the anti-trans, the immigrants are taking over our country. All of that is directly related to trying to dismantle our public schools. Lastly, we know that our public schools are the backbone of our communities, along with community centers like this, along with churches, along with different civic organizations, and we know that Kansas will remain strong with those public schools. Two of the places that you can go to get some additional information, one would be NEA, that's National Education Association, NEA.org/protect. Okay, NEA.org/protect. We will continuously update that landing page with calls to action related to the federal government. There's 3 right now about what's happening in the federal government, including a very easy action alert that you can send to your senators to ask them not to vote yes to install Linda McMahon as our Secretary of Education. Boo, yes. Okay. Again, that website was NEA.org/protect. The second website I'd like to mention would be KNEA Under the Dome, which is underthedome.org. If you just Google Under the Dome, Kansas, that has information from our Kansas NEA GR team. That particular website does have a subscribe feature, so if you scroll down to the bottom, you can subscribe to it. So again, NEA.org/protect. If you Google Under the Dome, Kansas, you'll find the KNEA one. Finally, our public schools, they're not failing, they're being sabotaged, and it's time to fight back. So what are you gonna do?
Stand up, fight back.
Thank you.
Andrea, you did the chant, so let's keep moving. So finally, let's hear from one of the most strategic, visionary civil rights leaders in our community, the Executive Director of ACLU of Kansas, Micah Kubik.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. All right, a few of you did the right thing. We will give the rest of you an opportunity. When I extend the greeting, it is your job to return it. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Much better, thank you. We filled the room. We might as well fill it with our voices, too. So it is really a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for coming today. I especially want to thank the team that put this event together and our partners who've come today, some of my favorite people in the world. Thank you all for coming. So normally on President's Day, people do 2 things. They go and shop for large household appliances, and they memorialize the accomplishments of our presidents. Well, there's a lot to memorialize today, because in just 4 weeks, this Trump administration has already cemented its place in history as the most chaotic, cruel, corrupt, and constantly illegal administration we have ever seen. In just 4 short weeks, and it feels like so much longer, doesn't it? In just 4 short weeks, we have had hourly examples of overreach and power grabs. Every single hour. And so when I think about when I think about what we are going to do about that, I go to stories, all right? So my father is from the Deep South, where storytelling is both an art and a pastime. And I remember today the very first story that I heard as a child. The very first story that I heard as a child. It is not great literature. It is not sophisticated. It is not elegant. But I guarantee you it's one you've heard before. So how many of you remember the story of the 3 little pigs? Yes. Right, so what happened? The pigs decided to build houses to shield themselves from the big bad wolf. The first little pig was at least a little bit lazy, if not complacent, and so he decided to build a house made out of straw. Well, the big bad wolf came along, he huffed and he puffed, he huffed and he puffed, he blew that house down and he ate the first little pig up. The second little pig was a little bit wiser than that one. He was watching from afar, and so he decided to build a house made out of sticks. Well, still, the big bad wolf came along. He huffed and he puffed, he huffed and he puffed. He blew that house down and he ate the second little pig up. Well, the third little pig was wiser than all the rest. Was a little more strategic, a little more thoughtful. And so he decided to put in the work to build a house made out of brick and mortar. He laid a strong foundation and built a house out of brick so that when the big bad wolf came along, he huffed and he puffed, he huffed and he puffed, but the house did not blow down. Now, the point of stories like this that we hear as children is not just to entertain us. It is also to teach us a lesson. They are parables. We're supposed to get something out of it. The lesson of this particular story is a couple things. It teaches us to know the value of planning and strategy and hard work. It tells us not to be complacent. And it tells us to be aware of the danger all around us from those who would wreak havoc and chaos and destruction. Now, I wonder what all that has to do with today. You already know. The answer is that we are going to spend the next couple of years dealing with Donald Trump and Chris Kobach and their friends all over this country who are going to be huffing and puffing and huffing and puffing. There's going to be more huffing and puffing than you have ever seen before. And our job, all of us here today, is to build and keep a house of brick that is so strong that all the huffing and puffing doesn't matter and the house doesn't blow down. That is our job. We've done it before and we can do it again. And there's a couple areas where I want to point out to you where we especially have to make sure that we are building that strong foundation, building a house out of brick. One of them you heard Leslie talk about already. The Trump administration's creation of this weird quasi-agency called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Really, it's the Department of gutting everything. It's the Department of gaslighting everybody. It's the Department of graft and evil. I got a bunch of these. This is what I do in the car. I think of them. Don't judge me. You have your hobbies. I have mine. DOGE, set up by a group of unelected, unappointed folks who are trying to wreak havoc on everything. On the federal civil service, trying to block money from going to things that's already been appropriated for, and most of all, taking every last bit of your private individual data. It is a violation of the Constitution, it's a violation of the law, it's a violation of common sense. And so we need to make sure that our elected officials all over this country know that we are not on board with this power grab, we are not on board with this overreach. And if they love it so much, here's what I want each and every one of them to do. I want them to gather all their identity documents, the Social Security card, their birth certificate, their bank statements. I want them to write all their passwords down on a piece of paper and pen. And then I want them to go down to the Best Buy, head over to the tech office, the Geek Squad, hand it all over to them and just say, have at it, have fun. Root your way through everything I've got, it's fine. Because guess what? The folks there, they're a lot better vetted than the folks who are staffing DOGE. So we got to make sure that folks know about that, that they know we are not on board with that overreach if we're going to build a house made out of brick. Second thing. The Trump administration is waging war on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. But make no mistake about it, this is not about HR presentations that some people may not like to sit through. This is about attacking the very principle of non-discrimination. This is about denying the existence of racism and sexism and every other ism. This is about rewriting history to make it more comfortable for Donald Trump and his friends. Because in the process of getting rid of attacking DEI, what did they also do? They got rid of an order from the 1960s that just said that the federal government should try not to actively discriminate against people. That's the standard. Just try not to actively discriminate against people. And that's what they got rid of. We got to make sure that they know we're not on board with that overreach. We're not on board with that power grab if we're going to build a house made out of brick. The third thing, if you believe that the only threat to our civil rights and our civil liberties is coming from Washington, you are in a wonderful, wonderful fantasy world. Because President Trump and his allies have allies and enablers right here in Kansas. They've got folks in the state legislature who are trying to not only implement their agenda, but to go further. They want to be even more extreme. They want to do even more. And so it is our job to push back on that, and it's our job to see the connections between them. They're not disconnected from one another. They're not disassociated from one another. They are one and the same. And in particular, the biggest threat that we face this year is from a guy who some of you may have heard of before. His name is Chris Kobach. Thank you. I love it when you know what to do. Chris Kobach is determined to undermine the civil rights and civil liberties of every single Kansan. And when he doesn't get his way, he's determined to rewrite the system and the structure so that he does. So a couple years ago, as you heard Emily talk about, the state Supreme Court ruled that there's a right to bodily autonomy, which protects reproductive freedom here in Kansas. The Supreme Court ruled on it. You, the voters, agreed with it in historic proportions. Well, Chris Kobach thinks that you don't know what you're talking about. And so rather than respect the rule of the people, rather than respect the independence of the Supreme Court, rather than respect a system that has existed for almost 70 years, and that is the envy of the nation, Chris Kobach wants to gut the Kansas Supreme Court, change the way that we select nominees so that they happen in partisan elections. And make no mistake about it, this is not about good government. This is not some sort of high-minded argument about the best process. He says it right out loud. He wants to change the process so that they can get rid of the right to have reproductive freedom. That's the whole thing. It's not about process. It's not about good government. It is about explicitly denying the right that y'all said you wanted protected by the state constitution. They're debating that in the state legislature now. They have a ways to go. They don't really have all the votes that they need, which means that we have a place to do something here. We have a way to protect the independence of the judiciary, and more importantly, a way to protect our civil rights. That is the work that we got to do. We got to defeat this proposed constitutional amendment to change the judicial selection process. We want to build a house of brick. That is one great big old brick in the wall. That is the work that we have to do. Those are all things that we have to do. If we want to tell these folks that we are tired of overreach, we are tired of the power grab. It's only been 4 weeks, but we have had it already. And I think you are here today for that reason, right? Leslie's going to tell you in a minute about how you can take action on a couple of these things, but all of them are about saying we are tired of the overreach. We are tired of the power grabs. They're about telling Chris Kobach and all of his friends in the Kansas legislature, keep your hands to yourself. Keep your hands off our bodies. Keep your hands to yourself. Keep your hands off our ballots. Keep your hands to yourself. Keep them off our court. Keep your hands to yourself. Keep them off our state constitution. Keep your hands to yourself. Keep them off Kansas. But again, these things are connected. So we also got to make sure that President Trump and his allies, these folks who want to shred the Constitution, denigrate our democracy, attack our freedom, we got to make sure that they know we want them to keep their hands to themselves too. Keep your hands inside the vehicle. Keep your hands inside the Tesla. Keep your hands off our data. Keep your hands inside the Tesla. Keep them off our votes. Keep your hands inside the Tesla. Keep them off our democracy. And keep them off of our America. That's what we got to do. That's what we got to do. And you are the ones to do it by taking action here today. Doing that means being in touch with your elected officials. And I already know when we say that, some of you have an internal monologue running. Oh no, they'll never listen to us. No, my official is already a good one. I don't need to speak up. No, that one is a crazy person. They're not going to listen to me. Tell that monologue to hush. Because no politician, whether good or bad, ever does a thing until they have done it. No politician ever does a thing until there is someone who is asking them to do it, calling on them to do it, letting them know that folks expect it and will support them if they do it. And the only thing that has ever stopped Donald Trump has been people. Not politicians, not the courts. Oh, sure, they pulled some levers. But people were the ones who got politicians and courts to take a stand. So when that monologue tells you, oh no, it won't make a difference, tell it to hush up and do the thing anyways. That's the way we tell them hands off. That's the way that we build a house made out of brick. Because we gotta learn from the 3 little pigs. Now is not a moment to live in a straw hut of complacency. Now is not a moment to putter around in a stick shack saying, oh, maybe we could just make a deal with the big bad wolf. Maybe a little light compromise and collaboration is just what the moment requires. No. Now is a moment to live in a brick house. Now is the moment for us to do the work to make sure that our defenses are strong and tall and thick and impervious. So that when all the huffing and puffing comes and continues for 4 years, this house of American democracy does not fall down.
All right, y'all, we're gonna put a brick in the wall right now before you leave. Okay, so before you go, I need you to take out your action sheet, which is the page with the QR codes on it. Some of you have a little one that says stop the Kobach power grab. Some of you have one that has 3 QR codes on it. They're the same thing. And if you don't have one, share with a friend. And then I want you to take out your phone and scan that first QR code. It's going to take you to a page where you can fill out a form, and then it's going to connect you to your congressperson. And it has a script for what you can say, so you don't even have to think on the spot. And I want you to know that as an organizer, there is nothing more magical to my ears than the sound of 300 people making a phone call to their congresspeople right now in this room. So please make that phone call in this room before you leave. And the second call to action is a QR code that's going to take you to a form where you can email your Kansas State